For over 15 years, Saturdays and a legal curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Show number 3 within the last 21 hours starts now. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show with Dave Minuk, with Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here to celebrate the color red, apparently. We celebrated the color navy on yesterday afternoon's Illegal Curve special edition live from City Place. Today, it's Red Shirt Day for Valentine's Day, as Snackatoba just said in the chat. Gentlemen, great to see you again on this Saturday morning.
Good morning.
Looking forward to the next couple of hours, and then I'm looking forward to not talking to either of you for the following 2 weeks.
Next week, we're going to do Purple Boys. Yeah, I mean, a lot of shows in a short amount of time, but, I mean, that's what it's all about. Love doing the pregame show, and obviously folks are loving the pregame show, wishing that we could do it all the time, but our significant others wouldn't appreciate that. But 8 wins in a row, boys. Unbelievable. Lots to talk about, only good things to talk about, because this Jets team just won't lose, boys. Looked like maybe they were in danger of losing a game last night, but they obviously came back and had a huge second period. So let's ready. I'm fired up. Let's go.
I like it there, Dave. Good morning to you too, sir. You know, this Winnipeg Jets team, as he mentioned, 8 wins in a row to head into the Four Nations break, which, of course, for the Jets and I believe the Colorado Avalanche started after last night's games. Other teams still in action. Lots of games today on a busy Saturday in the NHL, and a couple teams play tomorrow as well. Montreal, of course, always plays their traditional Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon home games right before the Super Bowl, and then the entire league will get off to the break. But the Winnipeg Jets continue just to be atop the Western Conference, atop the league, and with obviously Washington still having the bit of the edge in the points percentage, but all good from the Winnipeg Jets perspective for a well-deserved couple weeks off. Of course, the question is, will Mark Scheifele jump on a plane, or has he been asked to wait till Monday? And I guess time will tell on that front as well, Dave.
Sure, and just a little bit of Jets news before we get rolling. Brad Lambert, Parker Ford have been reassigned to the Moose. No surprise there. And while you guys were doing your little chit-chat, I was sending one lucky Moose fan 4 tickets in the Illegal Curve Zone. So those have been given away for today's game. But don't fret, my friends, because we have more tickets to give away for tomorrow's game. And then for the games this week. And then for the games next week. So if you want to go to the Moose, see the Jets of tomorrow, tomorrow, we can hook you up. But
can't wait for those pierogies today, Dave.
Oh, I know, Des. You're probably already you're gonna be cooking them in the car on your way home. But
are they going to be potato and cheddar? That's my favorite.
I believe they were. In past, they've been potato and cheddar. Yeah. Do you? Now, the question I have for you is: are you bringing an air fryer with you to the game and just plugging it in the concourse? So
I have a little mobile one that I just.
Can you imagine, like you're walking along and all of a sudden you see like Ezzy in the corner, like looking for a plug, trying to find a place where you can put in an air fryer. But look, it's been a phenomenal week, and just a little teaser. Connor Rabchak, who does his next day thoughts, usually does 2-3 next day thoughts. Ezzy, he gave you guys 8 next day thoughts from not just last night's game, but because, of course, the Jets have 8 wins in a row. So he's going to give you plenty to read about after the show is over. And there, as he's right, there's a lot to celebrate. I mean, this team has continued to show resiliency, has continued to show consistency. And like Scott O'Neill said, I mean, I don't necessarily agree that they've gotten 39 wins in 39 different ways, but they've definitely not won in ways that we've traditionally become used to seeing with this Jets team, which is Connor Hellebuck plays out of his mind. The Jets score enough goals to win, but the structure isn't there. So I think from my perspective, one of the things we've seen from this team is just a level of consistency that even when there's lapses, right, they rebound or respond. And, they respond when Scott O'Neill was pretty blunt in his post-game analysis in Utah back on January 20th for what he saw from this team. and they responded. And we've seen them, like I said, come out of the gate like a house on fire. But more than that, it's sustaining that and being able to build on it. And they've done that. And the other last thing I'll say is, aside from the special teams, which obviously merit a lot of conversation, it's that guys have seized opportunities when they've been presented. So Rasmus Kupari, David Gustafsson, all of these guys, even Adam Lowry, the guys like Cole Perfetti, the guys who are already in the top 6, they already have lots of opportunity, but it's those other guys who are stepping up when guys are absent, who have shown that they can take advantage of that.
You talk about special teams, just a quick note on that. And before I have a specific question I want to start with both of you for this morning's show. The Jets penalty kill, it's now in the top half of the league, 14th in the NHL. So their improved play.
We did it. We did it.
Yeah, that's right. Raise the cup, raise the banner. We've won. Speaking of raising the cup and raising the banner, though, that leads me into the question I had for you guys. Obviously, we know,
Hold on a second, Drew. This is more important. In Ehlers we trust, obviously deep fried. Come on. Okay. As far as the pierogies, for those listening on the podcast, in Ehlers we trust is asking how I like my pierogies. So the obvious answer is deep fried.
Well, deep fried or fried? Because last time I checked, you don't have a deep fryer in your house. At least I hope you don't have a deep fryer.
And I don't live in the
house.
southern U.S. and I don't deep fry everything. But no, I obviously fry them. I mean, that's the way to go. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, air fryers, good. I mean, boiled, not my thing. But yeah, I mean, I put it in a frying pan, little onions, little sour cream on the side, boys. Come on. You know how I like my pierogies.
2 fun facts. Number 1, Ezzy was once in a pierogi eating contest.
Twice.
Yes. Right, but that was, but you were in one.
On two separate occasions, he was in a pierogi eating
And I'm proud
contest.
to say I finished 8 out of 11 people. Thank you.
And then the other fun fact, I've never had a pierogi.
You've never had a pierogi?
It's funny because Dave is the most proud Manitoban ever, and he's never had a pierogi.
Food. It's your family's.
I understand. It's not for me. I don't like. I mean, I would have if there was just potato, but I don't like cheese that much. That except on pizza.
You can get potato and onion. There's all sorts of.
I know. I'm just lazy. I just don't like.
Lazy. It's not the. It's like. I mean, I know you never cook. I'm well aware you never cook for yourself.
My kitchen is pristine.
Somebody in your life at some point in time should have presented a pierogi in front of you. A dumpling, a pierogi, a knish. It's all in the same realm of Eastern European food.
I'm aware. Drew, and I reject it.
Dave, Drew's got to wrap his head around this. Dave has never had a pierogi.
Well, this isn't like at some point in time before you lived on your own. How did you not get a pierogi in front of you?
I'm not saying it wasn't put in.
That's what I'm saying, Dave. I'm not sure Drew's understanding this. It's not that Dave hasn't been around pierogies.
Yeah,
it's that he's never physically put one in his own mouth to eat. I mean, it's
pierogies,
not that hard to comprehend.
Lasagna,
no pierogies for Dave M.
Pierogies, lasagna, coffee. Those are all no-goes.
Okay, I need to take a
and
second
cigarettes.
Take a deep
no
breath.
cigarettes for Dave M. either.
Oh, yeah, definitely no cigarettes.
I need a minute here to compose myself. Let's get back on topic before I lose my mind entirely.
Somebody better eat a pierogi after all this pierogi talk.
39, 14, and 3. We know where the Jets are. It's been well documented. We know what the ceiling and the goal is for the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, winning the Stanley Cup. Has the floor for the Winnipeg Jets changed as far as the record, as far as you're concerned? Where do the Jets have to get in the playoffs for this to be not considered a disappointing season?
I like it, Drew. The big questions, the hard-hitting questions. That's what I wanted. Well, the reality is, guys, I mean, the Jets are in first place in the entire league division conference. This isn't going to mean anything if they get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. So we've known that all year long.
Right.
Last year they were a 110-point team, and they were out in the first. They were 110. Is that what they were last year? 109, 110, whatever they were last year. They got knocked out in the first round.
Weren't they 114 last year?
110. He's right.
Oh.
114 was 2018, Dave.
Don't be criticizing Ezzy right now, trying to correct them. Ezzy's the man. You and your anti-pierogi, anti-lasagna agenda need to go off into the corner and think about your actions.
I think I'm taking a different tact here. I think Dave should get some type of award for living in Manitoba that long and never having a pierogi. Like some Manitobans, I'm not joking, eat pierogies like 2 or 3 times a week. So
I get it.
The fact that Dave has never had a pierogi, I'm not mad. I'm actually impressed.
Thank you.
But anyways, let's get back to
when Baxter ate a whole
Jets
wheel of
here.
cheese.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the reality is, I mean, I don't think anything but going to the Western Conference Finals is going to be impressive. Like I don't think going to the second round for this team is enough. Like I know that would be an improvement. Like we're not the Toronto Maple Leafs here, guys. Getting to the second round is not the goal. The goal here is to win the Stanley Cup. So obviously, you know what? I mean, the Leafs deserve it. I know Jets fans will have no problem giving it to Leafs fans, right? But I mean, this team, I think, is built for the playoffs, built for a long playoff run. And obviously, guys, none of us have a crystal ball last time I checked. So we have no idea. I mean, look at a couple of years ago, the Boston Bruins had 126 points and got knocked out in the first round. Everybody remembers that, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it can happen. Winning the President's Trophy or finishing second or third overall in the league doesn't guarantee you playoff success. But I think with the way Connor Hellebuyck has played, obviously not just this year, but in previous years, but I think the big difference for me, and you guys know what I'm going to say here, it's the improved defensive play of the Scheifele line. It's obviously the emergence of the second line now and the power play. I mean, the Jets, since 2017-18, they've struggled on the power play. Now they're at a 33% clip or around 33%. That's a huge difference. Think about, guys, if the Jets scored an extra couple power play goals against the Avalanche, they might win that series last year. That's how bad the power play was, right? So for me, Drew, and I'll let Dave get in here, I mean, the Jets have to go to the conference finals at least. That's just my opinion, but I don't think, going to the Elite Eight is going to cut it this year.
Dave, same question for you, as you and I are fighting with each other in the chat right now. Like, you can't possibly say that the reason you've never had pierogies is
I'm not saying like at home.
I'm
seeing at restaurants growing up, like when you went to Mom's Pierogi Factory, shout out on St. Clair, then you had to be aware of that kind of thing. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Let's not turn this into a complete sidebar. We've already done that enough.
By the way, Kenny is in the chat much earlier than my prediction. My prediction was 9:15, and it's 9. Oh no, it is 9:15.
I said 9:20.
So Kenny's right on time.
Well, anyway, so to answer the question, I think that there's no doubt in my mind, at least, that you need at least to get, if you have a very good second round, like, and you get knocked out by a good team, fine. But it can't be the first round. You have to get past the first round. To be honest with you, I'm with Ez. I really think a conference finals is the bare minimum for this team, just the way they've played. There's really no reason to expect this team to take a step back. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with this break, and how that changes or impacts the momentum. But I really suspect you're going to see a team that takes maybe a week off. And we heard from Scott Arniel. He said this team has an optional on the Tuesday, and then they've got 3 straight days of practice before they go to St. Louis. So I think that they'll be able to shake off any rust that they, or any sand, I should say, because they'll, of course, been in the sun. But, well, most of them, I suspect. But so to me, that's kind of the thing. You don't expect them to have much of a lapse, I think, from what we've seen from this consistent game they've played over the last 8 since that game in Utah. And to answer your question, Drew, I suspect that it's going to be, by the way, I'm intentionally not looking at the comments so I can keep my thought process going. But to answer your question, I think that bare minimum for this team for this season to be considered a success is conference finals.
Kenny has no idea what he's walking into right now.
Well, let's bring in Kenny Weeb. Good morning, Ken. How are you?
Yes. Good morning, gents.
What are your thoughts?
Do I know what I'm jumping into? I just heard you absolutely carve the Leafs. Ezzy, I don't own a crystal ball, but for some props, I do have a souvenir from the 2001 All-Star game in Seattle, the Ichiro All-Star game. So
love it.
It's not as cloudy as my crystal ball, but I thought I would bring it on just for the Hall of Fame's sake this year.
Are you the one voter who didn't vote for Ichiro? Is that
I don't have a vote.
You're coming out and saying?
No, I don't have a vote. But what I would tell you is, having watched Ichiro's batting practice at that said All-Star game at what was Safeco Field, I mean, the guy he probably could have chased Bond's home run record if he wanted to, but chose to be a singles and doubles hitter. So one of the great one of the great players of all time, even though most of his time was spent in Japan. But my favorite part of the Ichiro experience, guys, like this is peak Ichiro, like pretending he didn't know English, like back to the media at his stall. Like it was, just starting out in the business. I was, what is happening here? I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? I understand, there's some things happening maybe culturally, but the whole, he's in a black leather chair, like his back to the media. It was just one of the most bizarro land things I've seen in the quarter century in the business. But happy to have been on site to see the mayhem. But I'm enjoying the intensity early on, guys. I'm enjoying it, and that's why I'm here. Why else would I be here?
Well, I assume you're here to talk about pierogies. Now, how do you feel about pierogies?
Oh, I mean, love pierogies. I mean, they were called,
you
in
probably
Mennonite,
joined a little bit too late. Dave has never
Sorry,
had a pierogi in his life.
David, we'll get you down to Altona for a little Veronica. It's the Mennonite portion of the pierogies, but
exactly.
And get you a little schmonfot. It'll be good for you. It'll be good. Speaking of cultural experiences, come on down to Altona, buddy.
I've been to Altona before, but I've never had that experience. Well,
Kenny, I'm going to be driving to Altona as soon as the show ends just to get that.
The best is, as he's going to show up at the Weeb residence, he's going to be like, okay, where are these pierogies that I've heard of?
Yeah,
you need a little notice.
Hang
on, you need a little bit of notice so that then you get the homemade variety, not store bought. I mean, store bought, great quality, but you got to have the full experience, the homemade pierogies.
Okay, we've completely derailed the show 20 minutes into it, so that's perfect timing for a good trip to the buffet.
Sorry, that's why I'm here, I guess.
Yeah, look, the fact that you contributed to the derailing of the show is unusual. Usually the three of us do that on our own, but the fact that you did it is, I think it tells you everybody's in vacation mode.
But Kenny's in blue while we're all in red, so he's ready to get us back on track.
Why didn't you send me the memo? I mean, I got a little red in the wake up
there.
there. If you had showed me, I might have a red shirt somewhere.
Kenny, we don't coordinate. We never do. It's just kind of luck of the draw sometimes.
All right.
Yeah, it just happens to be 2 days in a row now that we were all wearing blue yesterday when we were at City Place, and now we're all wearing red this morning. Kenny, good. The question I posed to Dave and Ezzy is, given where the Jets are, atop the league, we know the dominance that they've demonstrated through 56 games. The floor for this team, has that changed in your mind? You know that it was always about the playoffs, and it still is. But what is a successful season from your perspective for the Winnipeg Jets come playoff time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I'll have a better answer for you in about 26 games when we know what the competition is going to be looking like. But I mean, back to the crystal ball, I mean. Yeah. This is a team that can't be bounced in the first round. I mean, this is very simple. We talk all year about lessons learned and what's different. And yes, the vibes seem different, and maybe that there's a little bit of recency bias in previous years. But I mean, as someone who's around the team almost daily, there is a different feeling around this group. And I do think, and I understand the folks that are reluctant or skeptical, how come they haven't learned the lessons yet? But I mean, I'm here to tell you that sometimes, we always talk about it's not a linear path for prospects and development. It's the same for teams who are trying to win. And my best example of this is the 2022 Colorado Avalanche, because I was there. I covered the second round remotely. I covered the third round in person in Denver and Edmonton, and I covered the Stanley Cup final from front to back in Colorado and Denver. And that series featured one team that had won twice and was there for a third time, who only, a year or two previous to that time had figured out that, it doesn't matter if we're only skilled. If you can't defend, you cannot win. And when the torch was passed from Tampa to Colorado, the team that had previously been unable to get past the second round for the very same reasons it took Tampa a few extra years to actually win consecutive titles and make a third Stanley Cup, once they committed to defending fully, surprise, surprise, they knocked off a two-time champion. Yes, they had high-end skill, but they did it through their ability to defend, and then with some of the other qualities that we've been talking about the Jets all year long. Very good goaltending. Again, I'm not saying Darcy Kemper is in Connor Hellebuck's class when it comes to regular season goaltending, but got the job done, right? 9-10, whatever the goals or whatever the save percentage was, it was solid. They had a defense core that had a nice combination of skill and sandpaper. Getting Josh Manson was the missing piece for that defense core, but they also had some shrewd maneuvering with getting Devon Taves for the 2 seconds. Sam Girard, I think, was hurt for part of that deal, so he wasn't even part of that Stanley Cup. But they managed to do a good job of making it work. And guys, that was a homegrown group. When I'm on the ice taking photos in the mayhem that's ensuing, there's 5 guys that were on the worst team in modern day history. And you know what happens when you lose a lot together? You get sick of losing, right? So, I mean, if you're a member of the Winnipeg Jets core group, do you not think that they're tired of going home in April? Absolutely they are. So, I mean, you learn your lessons at different stages in your career. To me, again, I'm not saying the Jets are the 2022 Avalanche. What I'm saying is they've got a lot of painful bumps and bruises and scar tissue that is similar to what they had. Now, in order to win 16, a lot of things have to go right for you. But I would say there are some similarities in terms of the path that both franchises have taken. I understand fully that the Jets did not have, first overall picks like Nathan McKinnon, but their path is similar. And I also see similarities in terms of how Scott Arniel is handling this group compared to how Jared Bednar handled the group on the way up. Not afraid to talk about past failures, but leaning into the successes and lessons learned while also pushing the group with high expectations. So that's why I think it's important in terms of whether it's, conference final. Does making the conference final make it hurt less when you go home and get knocked out? I mean, that's up for debate. But I would say that, it would be unacceptable to be bounced in the first round. But I'm also here to tell you that the Jets could play great and run into a steamroller or get goalied or any of those things. And we'd be standing here saying, oh man, I mean, was that a good season or not? I mean, you can't take anything away from what the Jets are doing now. But the tough part about that discussion is without winning that silver trophy at the end of the season, there's always going to be some sense of disappointment. And Scott Arniel knows this. I mean, from being in the final against Davis Payne's LA Kings. Rangers had a great year that year. Was it a letdown that they lost in the final? Of course it was. Does it make it a lost season? No, but it does. There's no participation ribbons. You can hang a banner in your arena, but those are empty calorie banners, guys. I'm here to tell you that, that is still an accomplishment to win the conference. But I mean, Dave, you cover the Moose a lot. I mean, when the Moose went to the final against, first as St. John's, and then when I covered them against Hershey, they had a great season, but they lost in 6 games. Now, does it mean they had a bad, lost season? Didn't accomplish their goal? No, it was still a great season that provided a lot of highs and, some lows. They graduated a bunch of NHL players from that team. But I'm here to tell you that those guys, had they won game 6 and 7, would be feeling a lot differently than when you lose in the final. So, I mean, whether it's conference final or final, I mean, the answer to your question is simple. The Jets need to win a couple of rounds in order to feel better about themselves as an organization. But I like the fact that Scott Arniel is openly talking about wanting to play into June. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you and say, oh, who's going to win the league? That team who's not talking about getting to the final. And again,
it's funny, Kenny. Sorry for interrupting you there.
No,
but
okay.
You talk about last year. You remember the Spit and Chicklets guys came out and they said that people were talking about that the Jets were the biggest frauds in the league. You don't hear that same tone. You don't hear that same conversation at all this year. The word fraud hasn't been bandied about with regard to this Winnipeg Jets team, despite, similar to last year, having a really strong regular season.
No, that's true. And I mean, I would say there was one stretch during the, the minor hiccup that was happening that some people were wondering in the chat rooms. But I mean, again, I don't think the two people around the league, whether it's coaches, players, are all very complimentary of what the Jets are doing. And I don't think they're blowing smoke. Like this goes back to John Cooper. I mean, John Cooper said early in November, one of the best qualities the Jets have is that they don't beat themselves. And I mean, that sounds very elementary or rudimentary in terms of a process of a team trying to become a winner. But even good teams often shoot themselves in the foot because of the quality of competition. So the fact that the Jets were leaning into that early on during the 15-1 start and what transpired afterward is impressive. So we know what the block is, right? So it's 15-1, 3-7. Then I think, what is it, 21, 6-3, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm here to tell you. I mean, I've covered the league for 14 years. You guys have been around a long time. There aren't a lot of seasons that include 3 7-game winning streaks and 2 8-game winning streaks by game 56. It's more than a season's worth of winning streaks for most teams.
Mm-hmm.
These things don't happen by accident. They don't happen by just beating up on teams that are in the bottom 5 and wondering where their lottery selection is going to be. This is a very good team. I love the discussion yesterday. And again, I like the fact that Scott O'Neill was leaning into it. I mean, you know that there's going to be, it's 1 month till the deadline, 1 day, 1 month right now. So the Jets are in a position to add. They're not going to just be adding 6 or 7 pieces. They're not just going to be adding anyone who falls into their lap. They have the ability to be patient and do a lot of due diligence for the people you want to add for the specific, I wouldn't even call them holes. They're areas that could use improvement. We know what the areas are. They've been the similar areas for a good stretch of time here, but you don't have to go out and get the first guy that's being dangled out there as an offer. You
Right.
can be selective, and you can also make sure you do the due diligence to ensure that it is a Paul Stastny arrival. And again, I'm not knocking Tyler Toffoli as a person, but that move didn't work out.
Right.
Everything behind the move was a sound decision. Did the Jets play slower when Toffoli arrived? Yes. Could Toffoli score? Of course. He's got 19 this year on a brutal team, or a team that is certainly on the rise, or trying to be on the rise and rebuilding.
On the rise from 32nd.
Well, yes, I guess. Sorry. You know what I mean, though. So
I know what you mean.
for all the people saying, "Oh, what a terrible idea." Well, I mean, championship pedigree. The guy had 31 goals when he arrived. Had played on legitimately played on line with the second line center. So, I mean, was it a bad idea? No. Did it work out? No. That's the point. Sometimes it's not the higher profile moves that are the ones that make the biggest difference. So, I'm very curious to see how the next month goes. I expect the Jets to be active. I don't expect them to replace a ton of players. I would say that in the last 2 weeks, guys, a couple major developments. And this isn't just 2 weeks for Perfetti, but Perfetti's ability to put that slump in the rearview mirror and do things, not just eyes behind your head, backhand passes that are in before the goalie turns his shoulder. I'm talking about the little things along winning board battles, doing things like that, getting your pace up, getting to the hard areas against teams that have big defense cores like the Carolina Hurricanes, like the Washington Capitals, like the New York Islanders, even though 2/3 of their defense core was either in the minors or not on their team 2 or 3 weeks ago. But teams that are hard to play against, Cole is not kind of vanishing into the periphery. So that's a huge development. Vladislav Nemestikov went through a stretch where it was a tough go. There's no way around it. Wasn't producing offense. Obviously was banged up and battling through something. Now he's got his offensive game going. And again, all of a sudden, when that top line and the second line are both going offensively, that makes the Jets a far more dangerous team, especially when you look at how the third line is playing in spite of being without Adam Lowry, and how the fourth line just happened to provide a highlight reel goal where Alex Iafallo dragged Bo Horvat for a zone and a half before going roof daddy with a shot where it didn't even look like he'd get a shot off to begin with. So
that's why it was our Seagram shot of the game last night.
There you go. Nice choice. Nice choice. Yeah, so I mean, it's super interesting. Do I think the Jets are a better team if Vladislav Nemestikov's the 4C instead of the 2C? Of course I do, but you better make the right decision. And the other part of the equation, we saw it last night. Brock Nelson is now on a team that is within, spitting distance of a playoff spot. So historically, what that means for Lou Lamoriello teams is that you're not selling your UFAs, and it's far more likely that Brock Nelson extends than he becomes the Jets' second line center. So if that guy's not on the board, where are you going? Because, I mean, Ezzy, to your point about the Leafs, they deserve it. But guess what? Leafs are shopping in the exact same aisle as the Jets are, both on the back end and probably up front, even though they're saying they're looking for a 3C because Tavares is having a great year. But it's a similar deal as Winnipeg. Lowry, 2, 3C, 3C, whatever you want to call it, middle six center. So, and there's tons of teams like that around the league. Colorado, Minnesota, probably. I mean, that's what makes it so interesting. Does that mean you either overpay early to get the preemptive strike like Sean Monahan, or you wait until the last second? You may risk not having the player you want, but you also might open the door to someone like a Paul Stastny who's not on the market until 48 hours before the deadline is over. And the benefit the Jets have compared to most teams, they've got a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to salary cap and ability to absorb. And again, I'm not saying they're buying an $8 million player. What I am saying, though, is that they have the ability to buy a higher end player if they so choose, but they also may be just looking for a little bit of grit and sandpaper that can also score. Elliot Friedman mentioned a little bit of length. So maybe you're looking at a third pairing guy that can augment the pairing or, provide a little bit of a safety valve. I mean, Colin Miller, I think, has played pretty well, but you may need more than one guy that can play in that slot in the playoffs. We know that the Jets have often gone 8, 9, and 10 deep on the back end when they go on a run. Well, they've only gone on one lengthy run, but my point is well taken here by you guys, I'm sure.
Okay, Kenny, have a glass of water. That was an epic...
Where are the crab legs, Ezzy? Did you bring the crab legs that I requested?
Yeah,
make sure you get sauce at the back.
Pick up some pierogies. We know Dave M isn't going to pick it. Yeah. Drew's got his napkin, so Drew's probably going to start eating something. But
I love it.
I'm going to hold off, Kenny, on asking you.
Oh, don't hold off. Just
fire
away,
I'm going to hold off on
away.
this year. I was going to ask you who's going to be this year's Par Lindholm, but you just mentioned, the last couple of weeks.
Bogdan Kistelevich.
Don't disrespect the Bogdan.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, I should have gone with that one. But I mean, clearly, Kenny, you touched on how good the second line has been recently. Cole Perfetti, obviously, a huge part of that. And that was going to be my question. During this 8-game winning streak, has anything significant changed for you in terms of your thought process in regards to what the Jets could do at the trade deadline? Because you mentioned it. Everybody knows that, the Jets most likely are looking for that 2C or a top 4 or top 6 defenseman. But has anything changed for you? Because for me, I'm looking at the way that second line has played, and yes, Nemesnikov's not huge, Perfetti's not huge. I realize that some people would like more size on the second line or some more size on the defense, but maybe the Jets don't need to add a second line center and they can still be successful in the playoffs. But what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I just gotta tread lightly when it comes to that, Ezzy. I mean, there's also going to be, if you want to win 16 games, you got to be deeper, right? I mean, I like Brad's skating yesterday, but I mean, the Jets are an injury away from Brad Lambert sliding into the second line center role. And, I think Brad's making great progress this year, but is Brad going to be able to go up against Wyatt Johnston in the second round? Is he going to be able to go up against Jack Eichel or Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl in the third round? Is he going to be able to go up against Barkov if the Jets happen to play into June? I mean, I think there will be a time coming when he is able to fill that role, but for a team trying to win the silver trophy at the end, I just think that it would be dangerous to just say, "Hey, we understand things are going well. Let's just roll with what we have here." And hey, some teams have done that. Some of the years, sometimes the big moves are made in the off season. St. Louis is a great example. The year they got on their hot streak, although people were offered up on January 1st or December. They didn't make a big ad. I mean, they looked internally, and I understand that part of the thinking. So that's why I still think that you can be very specific in what you're targeting. But I do think that still, if the Jets want to win 4 rounds, I still think they need to upgrade at 2C or whatever number you want to use. And then you still need to upgrade at least the third pairing. I would say that the return of Dylan Sandberg has stabilized Neil Pionk, although, I mean, you guys know my feelings that it was a rough outing for that pairing last night.
Mm-hmm.
the majority of their nights have been very good together. So I'm not here saying, oh, they had one bad game, you better go out and get a second pairing defenseman. But I mean, I am saying that, would the Jets be better if they got a third pairing guy that could slide up into the second pairing if someone happens to be off their game? Of course you're going to be better like that. But I mean, most teams don't have the luxury of having a defense core like the Vegas Golden Knights that have a seventh defenseman that could be a fifth or sixth defenseman on most other teams in Ben Hutton. I mean, we saw it, guys, a couple of years ago. They swapped out their second pairing for Pahal, and Hutton came in, and you barely noticed that there was a change in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's not a knock on the second pairing guys they have, but it means they have other guys in the fold that are ready to go in. So I think the needs are the same. I mean, people ask me this all the time. I mean, you're still looking for, and if you want to get really specific, you might want to add a penalty killer with some length, like a Colton Sissons. I mean, it's a guy that Jason Bukala mentioned this week in one of his pieces. It's a guy that I've thought about a lot. I mean, the Jets, I mean, I still wonder sometimes if the Jets had drafted Colton Sissons instead of Lucas Sutter. And again, this is not trying to go,
Lucas Sutter. We haven't had a Lucas Sutter reference in a long time.
I know, but that's the 2012 draft. So in the second round, I believe. So anyways, just
it was
something that, I mean, I know they passed over him at the time, but I mean, he was more of an offensive player then. Now he's more of a, hard-nosed, great penalty killer, shot blocker. Believe he was on the team when they went to the final also. So for me, something like that can make some sense. But I mean, given how well Gustafsson and Kupari are playing, I'm not saying they're shopping in that aisle, but I'm not surprised if that's something that they're looking for. And again, right shot guy who can play some center, right? So, or take some draws. So those are the sort of things that I'm sort of looking at. Whether it's an Alexiak who is playing on your second or third pairing, depending on the matchup. I mean, what we know is that, past behavior, often a predictor of future behavior. So it means it's much more likely they're going after guys they've targeted before or had on their radar. Luke Shen, to me, makes sense. Yep. Championship pedigree, one more year on the deal. I mean, again, it may be a little bit of a different, maybe Robert Bortuzzo. I mean, he maybe isn't having as good a year. He's been hurt. Utah has an excess of blue liners on the right side, something like that. But again, would Bortuzzo play every game? No, but could he and Colin Miller split the duties on the right side on the third pair? Absolutely. Bortuzzo, we saw it eating Patrick Laine one-timers on the penalty kill. I mean, that was 2019, but I mean, that's the kind of player, hard-nosed, gritty. I mean, would the Jets prefer Luke Shen? Probably, but the other guy's 775 and the other guy has one more year, I think, at 3 and change. So you also have to know what's available. And man, I mean, Nashville, 18 points out of the playoffs, guys. I mean,
nobody had that. Nobody had that on their bingo card. Kenny.
And they lost to Chicago last night for Pete's sake. I mean, it's not like there's a push coming here. This is, I mean, it's wave the white flag time in Nashville. Just an awful season there.
Very strange, and that's what I'm saying. So some of the seller candidates are becoming clear, even though there are still some races happening. And yes, if you're within 5 points, you feel like you have a chance, but you're also kind of got to be realistic. Now you're trying to leapfrog 4 or 5 teams. This is not a simple place to be in. So we saw Calgary made a trade for the present and the future. So I mean, what we know about Utah, guys, they've got a lot of draft picks and prospects. You know what they need more of? Really good NHL players that are willing to defend. So, I mean, they might even be in competition for some of the players that some of these contenders are looking at. But, I mean, for the time being, as I think even though the Jets are playing great and you don't have to, there aren't a ton of holes, I still think they have to augment the roster in the areas. I think they're being realistic with themselves. They know they have a great group, but if you want to be an elite group, you probably still need to add. And we know the players that will have their roles bumped slightly or ice time bumped, like Vladislav Nemestikov, most likely. He is doing that with open arms previously, and he will do it again because you know what he wants? He wants to put a ring on his finger because he's been a hockey nomad and played in a ton of different spots. He understands the value, and he knows it's just as important for a fourth line player that can be a hero as it is for a second line player, even though that line is rolling right now.
Saturday morning, Ken Weeb is our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's presented by Play Now. Here, just a few minutes ago, is a tweet from Darren Dreger. Not shocking news in here, but I'll read the tweet in its entirety. With a full slate of games today and 2 more tomorrow, including Tampa Bay, it's believed that Winnipeg Jets star Mark Scheifele has been placed on alert by Team Canada in the event of another injury or Sidney Crosby not being ready for the Four Nations face-off. So that coming out from Dreger about 5 minutes ago.
Dreger bomb, Kenny.
Well, I hope.
I mean, Arneal told us that yesterday morning. I mean,
right.
So, but I mean, this is full confirmation from Hockey Canada brass for sure. But and not a surprise to any of us.
Not surprising.
Standing here. I mean, it's the only surprise is that he wasn't on the team to begin with, which again Scott Arneal reiterated when asked about it. So.
They haven't named a replacement for Pietrangelo yet, have they?
Well, it's Doughty. We're on Doughty watch here, guys. I mean,
is it Doughty watch? Yeah, not McKenzie, eh? Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's not going to be Uyghur. I mean, I believe the thought process is if Drew Doughty was able to get himself up to speed. I love Drew Doughty as a player, and everything he's done for Canada is well documented. Right. I just don't see a scenario where you have an injury like that, the high ankle sprain.
Right.
You don't ramp up in 2 weeks for international competition. I'm sorry. I love Drew Doughty as a player, Hall of Famer. But how do you expect to? This is an injury that takes months. You can't just ramp up and say, Drew's going to be better than a guy who's just played 56 games in the NHL. The gap is not that wide. Drew is a great player.
Especially if you're an LA Kings team that is, a damn good team, to be honest. Are you really that excited to send him off to play in these, what I'll call exhibition games, for all intents and purposes? I don't know how happy you are if Doughty's the guy that gets selected there rather than give him some more time to sort of get up to speed. That's just my thought on that front. But
yeah, I mean, I think if you're Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille, the ability to play in playoff type atmospheres may help him ramp up for the stretch run. I would be the counter argument counselor. Yes. Would be that.
but Kenny, what you're saying is who's a better option here, just based on?
I'm saying Mackenzie Weegar or Chris Tanev have to be better options. I mean, does
I'm with you 100%.
Drew have a higher ceiling? Yes, but I mean, you're basically asking him to be the 6th or the 7th defenseman. You're not asking him to slide beside Josh Morrissey on the second pairing and say, "Oh, by the way, I'd like you to play 24 minutes against Team USA." I mean, I just don't know how that ends well. If I'm Drew Doughty, I want to play in the Olympics in Italy. I don't care if I'm not ready. I mean, again, and I understand these guys want to play in international best on best. Of course they do. Haven't been able to do it since 2016. But I don't think that, I think that Drew would still be a great candidate for next year. But for this year, to me, it's got to be Tanev or Mackenzie Weegar playing alongside Josh Morrissey if it's not Colton Parayko on a shutdown type of pairing. And again, like I said, I do this by saying I think that Drew Doughty is still a top 10 NHL defenseman. I just don't think he's a top 10 NHL defenseman after missing 55 games with the type of injury he's had.
You're almost asking him to be a superhero. Like, it's just he doesn't have that ability to just turn it on after suffering that type of injury, right?
Well, he can be a superhero, but he has to be bionic, man. You have to basically put a robotic ankle on him in order for it to be working and for him to be up to speed. I mean, we talk about this all the time. And guys, I'm someone who's familiar with the healthy scratch when I was playing Canadian college hockey. So you can't be in game shape without playing games, no matter how many bag skates you have had to try to keep yourself ready. So, and again, Drew Doughty is a great defenseman, but Drew Doughty, in this case, at let's say 80%, is not better than 100% of Mackenzie Weegar or Chris Tanev or Brandon Montour, who just won a Stanley Cup and is a mobile, high-end defenseman, much like Drew Doughty, right? So I just don't think that Canada, I understand why they're waiting. I just don't know that you can sit in the room, whether you're the coaching staff or you're the management team, and say this is the best option. And hey, if Drew Doughty comes in 2 weeks and is a great defenseman beside Josh Morrissey in a gold medal or whatever we're talking about, championship outing against one of USA, Finland, or Sweden, I'll be happy to come back on the show and say, good job, Drew Doughty. I just don't think it's very likely for that to be the case, given the circumstances we're dealing with here. So,
and sorry, Kenny, don't be too hard on yourself. You popped in 8 goals for the Winkler Flyers, okay? So
easy now.
Don't make me bring that
my
up.
best goal I had 16. As you better go to Elite Prospect
Okay.
instead
Sorry.
of Hockey DB. Come on now.
Haven't you petitioned to have that updated, Kenny? I thought you filed some paperwork to that effect.
Stephen Wino just told me that that he has a direct line, so we're going to do our best to get those days. But hey, boys, I was a checking forward. I say it all the time. These hands were made for typing, not scoring. So that's why we are where we are.
And that upper lip was not made for a mustache. I can tell you that for sure as well.
That is also confirmed. Hashtag confirmed.
Kenny, not only was it confirmed by Eric Comrie, which was very entertaining in the subject of conversation here on the Illegal Curve post-game show,
Indeed.
But I liked how Scott Arniel started his post-game media availability yesterday, looking at you and saying, "Oh, no mustache anymore." So
I got a lot of tips, David, and and I've been encouraged, and they were right. Both Eric Comrie and Adam Lowry were questioning my life choices by not having a full cage on previously, and that full cage has been purchased and put on the helmet and was used this week once already. So happy to say I'm a member of the bird cage brigade moving forward. Got to protect the face. It's an important piece of business, as it turns out. There you go.
Well, Kenny, you got to protect the face. You got to protect the house, and the Jets protecting the house have been very good in terms of their PK. Because one of the things we've talked about special teams a lot, and everybody knows how good this power play is. There's no point really even talking about it anymore because we've had extensive conversations throughout the course of the year. But one of the areas that we've talked about the Jets needed to improve in was their penalty kill. We didn't think you need to be a top 5, but you need to be close to that top 10 to have a real effective penalty kill throughout the course of the regular season and of course into the playoffs. What's impressive, though, to me is the fact that the Jets have been able to do this, see this improvement, and as Drew said at the start of the show, have climbed into the top 15 of the NHL. They've done it without Adam Lowry for the last 8 games. So what are you seeing from the power kill, as we heard Christian would talk about it? But what are you seeing in terms of their use of the players and how they've kind of adapted and become a little bit better than what we saw earlier in the year?
Well, I meant to run the numbers, and between the two of us, we should probably be able to put our heads together here. But I mean, when Dylan Samberg was in the lineup for the first 23 games, the Jets were first in the top 5, then in the top 10. And after he departed, they dropped into the bottom third. And I'm not just saying this is a one-man show, but when Samberg and Lowry together were both in the lineup, I believe the Jets were a top 10 penalty kill for the majority of that time. And this wasn't just small sample size special. Like, this is 23 games, and then the games where Samberg has been back, their penalty kill has been much improved. And the fact that they've sustained that without Lowry in the 8-game winning streak, to me, is incredibly impressive. Now, it also reinforces, we've talked about depth all year long, guys, right? So you can put in, Dave, you saw this, David Gustafsson was probably an elite penalty killer at the American League level. Yep. And it took him a while to finally kick down the door and get some reps in, whether it was face-off related or whatever you want to talk about. But, and I mean, Kupari, yes, it starts with face-offs, but he's come in and done a nice job. So long-winded way of saying, and this isn't as long-winded as other buffet stops, their ability to hit the pressure points at the right time is what has made them a little bit more successful. Now, I wouldn't point to the third power play in the third period as a great example of that when they gave up, I think, 8 shots and 1 off the crossbar. That was a little too passive for me. They got stranded out on the ice a little bit too long in the defensive zone and got gassed. So there were not a lot of pressure points being attacked. But what I am seeing is a lot more cohesion. And again, goaltender has to be your best penalty killer, but in order for that to happen, you need better box outs. You need to be able to keep the front of the net clean so that there's not as many deflection goals, something we talked about, ad nauseum in that series against the Colorado Avalanche last April. So they're doing a better job on the bottom side with the D, and the forwards are doing a better job of being in shot lanes and attacking, when a player, curls ever so slightly, or if his stick angle is, to the point where you can attack them. So, they're not a wild attack team like some of the other really, we heard Scott Arniel talk about, Carolina being, I think, one of the biggest pressure teams. Some of them have been passive in terms of how they've attacked the power play, but the Jets power play, but their penalty kill is much more cohesive. And I think they've picked up the concepts from Dean Chenoweth from the very beginning, but it was the application and the ability to be a little better in front of the net has been a big thing for me. I mean, because hey, Connor Hellebuyck is having a superhuman season, but I saw somebody point out one of the stats is his 5-on-4 save percentages is kind of. I mean, again, you're digging very deep into the bag of tricks. If your nitpicking is Connor Hellebuyck is more like
too many goals when the
more,
Jets
more like
two
league
men short.
average in save percentage. But come on, man, like, but. So, I mean, again, if you're in opposition, you're trying to find whatever. There aren't a lot of advantages to be had, so you better be looking under the rocks for whatever they are. But, anyways, that's not a knock on Hellebuyck. It's a reminder that the team needs to do a better job when it comes to that facet of the game, because it's something that has hurt them previously in the playoffs when it counts. So, I mean, sorry, the penalty kill has been much improved, but I also think that I think it's important that we don't forget that it was actually quite good out of the gate, which was maybe a little bit of a surprise because it was a bit of a change in terms of philosophy. So, but because the penalty or the power play has been so good from the very beginning and kind of operating at historic levels, the penalty kill has always had that, on the report card has said needs improvement. But I think if we're looking a little bit more at the underlying things and when they've had their bodies and their key cogs on the penalty kill, it's actually been pretty darn good as well. So now, 26 more
best
games.
Penalty kill in the league since Sandberg returned to the lineup.
There you go. Wait, see, we have the ability to crunch numbers. I can filibuster with the best of them. We've got the ability to fire up. Well done,
secret,
Drew.
Thank you, Kenny. The secret, is my second screen. Ezzy and Dave know that I talk about the second screen a lot.
Experience, Drew. Experience.
It's over here.
Player.
It's the power that where I generate my power. It comes from the ability to use my second screen.
Drew's playing Candy Crush on his second.
Sounds like resourcefulness to me, Drew. I would mark that down as resourcefulness. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Your buddy, your colleague, Mike McIntyre wrote an article in the paper this week, sort of looking at the rest versus rust debate. Looking back at the last time there's really been a big pause in the middle of a season. And and he wrote it, but he included the bubble, but the bubble with COVID and everything was such a unique anomaly. I'm almost willing to disregard that for a little bit.
Well, the only reason we don't disregard it is because it's the most recent example. But
of course,
I mean, it's definitely not something that you're going to draw a ton of conclusions from.
No, but he went back, 10 years ago to 2014 when the NHL went to Sochi for the Olympics. That was the last time they sort of had a big, in-season break. And Mike very astutely pointed out that, the best teams were not the best teams when the league resumed after going to Russia. How much stock do you put into that? How much sort of do you think that that's maybe a concern for the Winnipeg Jets? Almost, what is the goal for the Jets over the last 26 games of this regular season? There's no question that they're going to be a playoff team. Really, they should still win the Central and finish atop the Western Conference if they just play average hockey. But if you're Scott Arniel, you're the brain trust. What's the messaging? What's the goal for the final 26 games of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the article was a good idea by Scott Gibbons and executed well by Mike. And I would just say too, it's the circumstance. That it's we're not going to draw a ton of conclusions from stuff from 2014. I mean, the game has changed since that time, and I just think that it was definitely a valuable exercise. And you sort of have a few eyebrow raisers in there. But what I would say, Drew, that I don't think any of those things apply to this version of the Jets because of all the things we've been talking about for the last almost 45 minutes here. Because of the battle scars, they're not going to come back like fat cats and complacent and thinking we've got this division cased, and so we can just go into cruise control for 26 games. So I don't think I think there are valuable lessons to be learned from it, that you better be sharp and you better limit the whatever you're doing on the break, enjoying yourself, go ahead and enjoy. But you work so hard to get to this point. Don't throw it away by having a 2-week vacation where you're not thinking. The reset is important. Get away from the game for a week. But I mean, I also think too, we look at the hunger of this group. This is a focus group. The reason the Jets are where they are, Drew, is because of their ability to just zone in on the next task. So the task right now, enjoy the heck out of the next 7 days. And then guess what? For the next 7, start getting yourself ready for the most enjoyable part of the season. So I don't think the Jets are going to, have all kinds of bad habits creeping into their respective game, or that they won't be hungry coming back thinking that, they've got a big issue coming down. I mean, this team wants to win the Stanley Cup. So you're not going to come back and say, you know what we've done so far, super cool. Let's hang the 56 game banner up there and see a training camp. I mean, that's just not how this group is wired. And honestly, it's one of the most impressive things that Scott Arniel has done. The ability to have his team on task and the players for following on task. I said this the other day with Hustler guys. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm pretty sure that at exit meeting day, I'm guessing that in your shows, you were not blown away by the let's get 5 to 10% better mantra that was coming out of there, because it sounded like empty words, empty promises, right? But what has happened since then? They've actually backed up those words with action, and they have been 5 to 10% better in almost every area of the game, to the point where they're first in almost every category this year, except for penalty kill. So, I mean, I applaud them for their ability to dig in. And I always talk about this. I mean, I've been in a lot of losing rooms over the years. You've been in some winning rooms. Josh Morrissey's emphatic plea to his teammates to not want to feel this way again after game 5, that resonates, as a listener. So to me, I see no other explanation than that the Jets were, quite frankly, pissed off at how it ended and wanted to say, this isn't us. We want to show people that we can be a winning team and get to the end of the rainbow where the trophy is. So again, long road ahead to that. But Drew, I don't see there being any issue with the break. I mean, yes, would a team that's won 8 in a row like to keep playing, whether it's for 1 more week or 3 days or 3 months? Sure. But it's the compound interest for me is what the Jets are doing. There have been a lot of deposits. There have been 56 deposits, some bigger than others, but the consistency of the deposit is why the Jets are where they are. And, they're going to have a 2-week break, and then the deposits are going to start being put in on, February 18th at an optional practice. And then on the 22nd, when there's a game against St. Louis, because the only way you get to achieve your goal is if you keep making the deposits. This is not a lump sum game for the Winnipeg
I want to see
Jets.
Kenny's bank account, because mine is just all withdrawals. I don't have as many deposits as you, Kenny.
Yeah, I was not sure that we'd start with Ichiro and end with an economy lecture. That is definitely not my area. Last night,
how much deferred salary are you giving away?
I've got no deferred salary, but I did have a funny moment last night at the end of the show where the old calculator was not working. You guys know that I said Gabe Vilardi good for 35 plus. And I'm like, it'll be tough to get to 40. That means he needs 26 in 26 games. And I'm like, no, that would be a 50 burger for Gabe Vilardi. It will still be tough to get 16 in 26. I wouldn't rule it out.
That prediction's looking pretty good, Kenny.
The 35 plus is looking quite comfortable here. Yeah. Kyle Connor for 45 to 50. He'll have to stay hot, but I mean, it just all to say that I don't see the break being an issue. Every team in the league is going to have the same break. Now, the Jets have 3 players, whereas Washington has 0 players playing in the event. Is that a factor? I don't know. I mean, to me, 3 or 4 games, whatever level they're at, I think they can only help those players that are participating, but the players who are not there are going to benefit from having that break. So the Jets' hunger is the issue here. They are hungry. They don't want to have a one and done. They know what people say about them and whatever else, can't get the job done. Well, hey, they said that about the 2021 Colorado Avalanche, and then they put a banner up. So anyways, all to say that this has always been fun, guys. Jay Bell sends his love from Mexico. Yes. Enjoy the break. I will be heading to Mexico also on Sunday, and as you guys know, I'll be fired up when the break is over also. This is the most enjoyable time of the year. Yeah. Obviously, playoffs being the most enjoyable, but this the sprint to the finish is always fun. Games every other night, storylines emerging, trades are going to be happening. We will be trying to break it all down, and that's the beauty of the space that we reside in. Couldn't do it without the listeners, and couldn't do it without the ability to have these kinds of fun conversations. And I'm wishing you guys all the best the rest of the show, and during the stretch as well. We will catch up with a Saturday buffet again.
I was gonna say, does that mean you're missing the Super Bowl, or are you landing in Mexico in time?
I believe that as long as the bags are out at a relatively decent hour, should be at the hotel by kickoff, I believe. Yes.
Philly or Casey?
As someone who saw the closest thing to a recent dynasty in the NFL and watched it quite closely in New England, I just have a hard time. I won't be surprised if the Eagles win, but I can't in good conscience bet against Mahomes and Reed. I just can't. Now sorry, I mean, this also, I have trouble because of some other scar tissue. I have trouble betting against Steve Spagnuolo, no matter who he's going up against, because he shattered the perfect season. So I'm going to ride with Hustler and the team in red, though I have no horse really in the race. Yeah. Outside of knowing Hustler and Raj and guys who actually care about the Chiefs a lot, I am not in that category. But Kansas City is a great sports town, and if they want to celebrate one more time, fine. As someone who enjoyed watching the Patriots for a long time, if they don't get the first three-peat, I won't be disappointed. But I have to go with the Chiefs in a tight one. Though I do think that the classic. I mean, and this is not a knock on Saquon. I just think that Spagnuolo will do everything in his power to minimize his damage, which means Jalen Hurts will have to go off with his receiving core, or there's going to have to be turnovers created by their great front seven in order for the Eagles to unseat the champs.
Okay, go pack your bags, get the hell out of here. Have a great trip. We'll see you back in Winnipeg after your sojourn to down south for some warmer weather.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Winnipeg Free Press, our great friend.
Kenny, have a couple pina coladas for us, will you?
We'll see what I can do. As don't want to overindulge here. Got to be focused for the playoffs.
There you go. You can have a couple pierogies there in Mexico instead. Thanks,
see you, boys.
See you later. Kenny Wiebe, our friend, our guest, always a great trip to the buffet. You knew he was going to arrive early.
That was an all-timer, boys. That wasn't just a regular trip to the buffet. That was an all-star trip to the buffet.
You knew he was going to arrive early, and you knew he was going to stay late. So that made it a very good trip. He's a wanted house guest. He's not an unwanted house guest. He's a wanted house guest. We're going to take a break, is what we're going to do, and come back with much more.
By the way, I have an unwanted house guest downstairs right now.
Yes, that's your own problem, your own making, your own doing, Dave. Much more of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show to come. Stay with us on this Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Not any Jets news aside from Lambert and Parker Ford being sent down to the Manitoba Moose, which Dave mentioned off the top of the show. But the Bombers love making news on Saturday mornings. Last week was Dalton Schoen getting re-signed. This morning, Chris Strevler has re-signed with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We know how big of a threat he is in rushing the football from the quarterback position. Less so of a threat when it comes to throwing the actual football, but that's why the Bombers have Zach Collaros in their lineup. Strevler back under center, led the league, the CFL, in rushing touchdowns despite being injured in the Banjo Bowl. So Strevler, number 17, has re-signed with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
That's huge. Huge.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The Bombers obviously looking to run things back for the most part as they get set to host the Grey Cup next year. They look to get off the losing ways that they've been in. They always get to the game as of late. They need to start to win one. It almost feels like this coming season with the Grey Cup in Winnipeg is sort of the last kick at the can for this core of the Bombers, and they're bringing back the gang one more time to see what they can do.
We have to get our tickets, Drew, renew our season ticket relationship.
Well, it's been about a dozen or maybe longer than that since we last did that. And so I would say we can go to a game, but we're good otherwise. I mean, let's be honest. A game is fine.
We had a great time. I mean, you got sick of having to take my drunk carcass home. But I mean, aside from that, I mean, the first couple of quarters I was sober.
Yeah, you were fine. It was a lot of fun. It was a simpler time for both of us. Pre-kids, far fewer responsibilities in our lives.
Oh yeah, sure. Now, Drew, you take your son over me. I get it.
Don't forget my son and my daughter. I take both of them over you, along with my wife, my dog, the neighbor's kids. The random other people I sometimes run into. There's a long list. And then maybe I'll give you a call. Dave, are you available before I call Ezzy? No, Dave's not available. Okay, that U2 concert we went to was a one-time only thing.
That was it.
In any event,
Dave's actually going to be doing a pierogi taste test of all the different types of pierogies. He's going to be busy doing that.
So let's get back into the Jets.
The pierogi talk.
Kevin Woodley, by the way, is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Talk about goaltending ahead of the Four Nations Cup. Talk about Connor Hellebuck and his continued excellence, of course, all season long. From the Jets' perspective, we're sitting here. We're about a month away. I guess the trade deadline is it not a month from today, if I'm not mistaken?
Is it the 7th, I think?
Is it the 7th? Okay, March 7th.
I thought it was the 7th, but
right. You're right. It's the Friday the 7th. So close enough, but
that works out well for us, by the way.
Because there's
I'm just saying that we have the show the next day, so maybe we'll even do a trade deadline show. Who knows?
Well, we'll see if the Jets.
We do have that special edition bumper we can always use, Ezzy, so we could do a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show to talk about the trade deadline if there are any big moves.
Jets play that night. They're going to be in New Jersey that night as well.
Ezzy will be there as well.
Yeah, I'll be there in Newark
on the Devils.
I'll be in downtown Newark.
My dad's texting me. He wants to know if my father and my mother are ahead of you in the pecking order. They are as well. So I just wanted to add them to the list. I apologize for omitting
obviously
them.
Your parents are way ahead of me. I'm somewhere like 79th or 82nd or I don't know. I'm way down there. I mean, you'd have to go like Drew would go through his high school yearbook and he'd be like, okay, does that guy still live in Winnipeg? I'll give him a call. But yeah,
I'm willing to fly people in. They don't have to necessarily live in Winnipeg. I'm willing to fly people in.
Flights from Toronto aren't that expensive.
Well, you know what? We'll see how far I'm willing to go for this in the event. A month away. You know, we've heard the names. We know Brock Nelson here, and he's the big shiny object that everybody, you know, has a lot of love for as the Jets' second line center. You know, the calculus though, has it changed from your perspective? Is it still the same second line center, third pairing left side defenseman? We've heard other names get bandied about recently. Brian Dumoulin's name has been out there as of late. Mario Ferraro's name has been out there as
Jamie
of late.
Alexiak.
You look at
I'd throw in a guy like, I don't know if you guys saw this name out there, but Carson Soucy's a left side defenseman, right?
Well, Vancouver has said that Vancouver has said to all the teams in the league that Soucy can be had.
Well, they just re-signed Pettersson to what, like a 6-year deal?
Yeah, 5-6 year deal. But Marcus Pettersson, who they acquired from New York or from Pittsburgh, pardon me, as part of the JT Miller in the first round pick, and all the machinations thereof.
Well, the funny thing, sorry, Drew, I was going to say the funny thing is that Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, has also emerged for the Vancouver Canucks, and he's playing well. So that now they're like, a lot of people were seeing those headlines, and they were saying like, Elias Pettersson's a forward. It's like, no, the Canucks have a defenseman named Elias Pettersson. It's like back in the day, there was a. Do you guys remember there was a second Peter Sikora?
Yes.
NHL. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there's also a second Sebastian Aho. I don't know if a lot of people know about
on the Islanders.
Absolutely. So I mean, there are players that have the same names. There's only one Dave Minuk, though, that's for sure.
But actually not true, but okay.
There's the Dave Minuk who's a realtor.
Well, he unfortunately passed away, but yes, there was at one time two Dave Minukes in the city.
Okay, so there was two Dave Minukes. Sorry, I missed one. But I mean, getting back to the trade deadline coming up in a month, guys, and the fact that the Jets have won 8 games in a row, like. I'm with Kenny, and it's hard to argue with Kenny. I mean, great segment with Kenny, by the way. And I think that like the second line center is interesting because you look at like Chris Johnston put out his recent trade bait board for TSN. I'm not sure if you guys saw that.
Yeah,
and obviously
the Athletic is actually who he puts it out for.
Oh, pardon me, I was looking at TSN, but Athletic, TSN. I know because he works for both, but maybe we can get CJ on the show coming up.
They just poach it, Ezzy. They literally just go and they'll like LeBron will write an article for the Athletic and then it's on TSN like 5 minutes later. Kind of like how the Sirius XM News did a conversation with Scott Arniel and then somehow used one of our images. Didn't tell us, didn't ask us, cropped out our logo. They'll be hearing from us.
Dave's litigious, folks. Don't get on his bad side.
Yeah, I was not happy.
But Dave and Drew, talking about like potential options for the Jets, obviously what I was going to mention is Brock Nelson is no surprise, number 1 on the trade bait board. And, Drew and I were going a little bit back and forth about, whether the Islanders are really in the playoff race. And I'm with Drew. I don't think the Islanders are going to end up making the playoffs. I just think there's too many other teams that they're going to have to leapfrog. But I think that, the Islanders certainly think that they're still a playoff team or can make the playoffs, I should say, right? So I have no idea if he's going to be traded. But for me, Brock Nelson is still the most attractive center on that board because there aren't that many after that, right? Like, sorry, guys, I'm not getting that excited for Nick Bjugstad or Braden Shen. Braden Shen has been a fantastic player over the course of his career. He's got a Stanley Cup. But if you're talking to me about, Brock Nelson versus Braden Shen, I'm picking Brock Nelson as a better option. And yes, Toronto and other teams are going to be, interested in Brock Nelson as well. But going back to what you were saying, Drew, I think that, that's still what Chevy is looking for and a left side defenseman. So,
let's talk about the left side defenseman category, because I think that's where, we know that the number of second line centers, at least the names that have been bandied about, there's not a lot of second line centers available, Dave. But you look at the left side, sort of that third pairing defenseman category, there's a good number that are going to be out there. I'd say it's more of a buyer's market when it comes to, sort of depth left side defenseman than it is a seller's market. You talked about Carson Soucy of Vancouver. He's not a pending UFA, but he's a guy, that he's making $3.25 million.
Having a down year for sure in Vancouver.
He's having a down year, but $3.25 million is not intolerable for another season on top of it.
Because not only is the cap going up, Drew, but the Jets have the cap space this year for that.
Right, and they don't have a surefire, left side third pairing defenseman that he would be blocking for another year or anything along those lines. I mean, with all due respect to Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola and everything else, you can say that they're not necessarily if they win a job and they take it away from Susie or somebody else, so be it. But we'll deal with that, cross that bridge when you come to it later on. You have Alexiak. Again, he's under contract for another year. Guys who are under contract, where you get the cost certainty of what you have to pay them, have an appeal. So there's two guys on your left side immediately that I've mentioned. Mario Ferraro, again, he's also under contract.
Yeah.
A third player at that point in time. Dumoulin, he's a pending UFA. And then if you really want to go deep, Ryan Lindgren out of New York, he's also a pending UFA. So there's 5 right there. Depth guys who play on the left side, which means that's really where the Jets are looking. So they have options available that really are probably going to be an improvement upon Logan Stanley. And I'll give Stanley a little bit of credit as of late. He's been fine, I would say. I would say that he's been adequate and serviceable during this Winnipeg Jets 8-game winning streak. Not to say you want to go into the Stanley Cup playoffs with him as your third pairing left side defenseman. But since he's been given this runway, since he's been given this stretch of you're our guy, he's been perfectly fine for the Winnipeg Jets, I would say.
Right. And Dave, the key here is that you want to have a third pairing defenseman who's not only an upgrade over Logan Stanley, Ville Heinola, and Hayden Fleury. You want a guy that if, forbid there's an injury,
right, he can move up.
You can move a guy up, and that's what happened when Dylan Sandberg was out of the lineup. We saw what happened, whether it was Hayden Fleury or Logan Stanley. They don't have the ability. All due respect to those guys, they're just not second pairing defensemen, right? So whether it's Jamie Oleksiak, whether it's a guy like Brian Dumoulin or Mario Ferraro or Carson Soucy, I mean, Drew threw out a bunch of names there, right? I mean, that's kind of what our thought process is right now. I think most people in the media, most Jets fans can see that, right? Like the big needs are left side defenseman and a 2C. I think it's harder to find a lot of names that are appealing. Like a lot of people are saying Ryan O'Reilly. Like I don't know. Are the Nashville Predators even looking at moving Ryan O'Reilly? Do they want to move him to a division rival? Is that a factor at all? I have no idea.
They traded Nino Niederreiter to the Jets.
Well, it's true, right? And I mean, Paul Stastny was from the St. Louis
division
Blues,
rival,
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, to me, guys, if we're talking about, if the Jets can't get Brock Nelson, then yeah, sign me up for a Ryan O'Reilly, that cup experience. I think, Ryan O'Reilly would look good up the middle for the Jets, Dave.
Look, I think one of the most interesting debates you can have when it comes to this issue is the impact it has on the roster. And I agree with Ken to a degree. Like, while guys don't necessarily want to get bumped down, I'm sure Vlad Nemestikov, if you need him to be your fourth line center, isn't going to grumble. He'll just go and do it, which we saw him do last year when they acquired Sean Monahan and he moved down and he was fine on the fourth line. But it is that interesting debate as to the chemistry that you could be impacting. I mean, this is a team, by no mistake, has gotten to where they are with the guys that are in the lineup right now. So I agree. Like, to me, originally you'd be like, okay, well, this team needs, some big upgrades in order to really be a contender. But right now, it's kind of hard to argue that they're not already a contender based on how they're playing. Now, the key
Earlier
is
today in the show, we said that their floor is the Stanley Cup, is the Western Conference Final, or should be the Western Conference Final.
For sure. And I think that of all when you look at the opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets, there's no really elite teams, right? The Washington Capitals have proven to be a wagon in the East. The Jets are proving to be a wagon in the West. And then there's some very good teams, even though, I mean, they're obviously engaging, right now it's mired in some slumps. Like Vegas is in a bit of a slump. Colorado's kind of won some, lost some. I know Dallas, although one thing about Colorado, I noticed they finally got their goal differential into the positive, because for the longest time, obviously based on their goalie tandem to start the year, it was negative. Now they're plus 12, but
sorry, Dave, and I don't care what anybody says, as long as you've got McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, I'm putting the Oilers in there as well.
Well, let me stop you both for a second here. You talk
especially if they go out and get John Gibson, which has been some rumored conversation out west.
But you look at the bracket that the Jets are likely to end up in, right? Let's assume the Jets win the West which of course would mean they'd win their division. The bracket that they're in, you're going to play the second wild card team, whether that's Vancouver, Calgary, or whomever it is. It's going to be one of those teams.
Yeah.
Then you're going to play obviously Colorado is still, it's going to be one of Dallas, Minnesota, or Colorado. Well, Dallas is going to be without Miro Heiskanen. And even if he comes back for the playoffs, he's not going to be a full strength Miro Heiskanen. We know,
but hold on, Drew. Dallas can also add a lot. They've got a lot of space right now to add. That's
a bad loss for Dallas. I'm with Drew. Losing Heiskanen is huge.
How much more are they going to add, Dave? They went out and they got Granlund and they got Ceci, and I know that they can add more. I get that and everything else, but how much more realistically do you think that they're going to?
I don't bet against Jim Nill.
Okay, that's fine. That's a fair. He's a bold general manager.
I'm with Dave on that one. I mean, his track record is
really
impressive.
Good,
yeah, he is a very good general manager. I'm just saying it's I think easier to come out of the Central this year than it's going to be to come out of the Pacific. When you look at Edmonton,
I think that's also true.
Edmonton, Vegas, Los Angeles. Those are three damn good teams that are gonna,
I think
you're feeling something.
I don't remember when you asked us the question, whether it was last week or the week before, Drew, but I think the question you asked us was, how important is it for the Jets to finish first in the West? And we look at these, you look at the ability to avoid, like with all due respect to Vancouver. I'm not saying that the most recent game we saw against Vancouver is emblematic of what that team is and who they are.
Especially now that they've resolved the situation.
Right. So, but I still don't think Vancouver is going to would be a tough task for the Winnipeg Jets. I still don't think the Calgary Flames. I think they're up and coming. I think Dustin Wolf's an excellent goaltender. We can see that there's some beef now with Scheifele and I don't remember. I didn't see which player it was, but I don't know if you saw Ryan Dietrich, who used to work for the Jets, put out a little clip of when they had a mic'd up thing. And one of the players to Scheifele, after Scheifele high-sticked them, kept saying flippin' instead of swearing at him.
Was it Rasmus Anderson?
No, it was Pascal. I don't remember who it was exactly. I'd have to look. I think it was 94.
Braden Pahal?
Yeah, Pahal. That's who it was. Yeah. So, but it was just
funny. Play for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, for Vegas. Yeah, that's right. For I think 3 years. But anyways, the point is that he and Scheifele had a little beef. So we'll see if that carries over if the Jets were to play the Flames. But I still don't think the Flames are a tough out for Winnipeg. So I think it's to that point. I think that's why if you say, what do the Jets have to play for? Because you could say, well, you've already banked enough points. I think there is a lot to play for. I don't think you're playing for the President's Trophy, but I think you're definitely playing to be the top team in the West. So from that perspective, you want to be that. You need to be that. So we're deviating because the original question was about, impacting chemistry and making trades. And now we've gotten into the importance of finishing first but like I said, I think you can augment this group. I think there's lots of places that you could. I think on a true championship team, and again, you have to be willing to make these moves. I think you could move Dylan DeMello down a step and have Mackenzie Weegar as your pairing beside Josh Morrissey. Now that's your best case scenario, as he doesn't sound like Craig Conroy and the Flames have any interest in trading Rasmus Anderson, Nazem Kadri, or Mackenzie Weegar. They've essentially said, we're not making any deals. Now, maybe that's just a way of gaining some more leverage. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is, look.
Do you see Craig Conroy trading Mackenzie Weegar? I just don't see it.
No, I don't. Again, we talk about it, and I'm just saying he to me would be if you could pair him with Josh Morrissy.
Oh, yeah.
I found a way to get Bonds and Griffey without giving up too much.
I was going to say, if we're playing fantasy hockey, then Dave, Mackenzie Weegar is my top choice.
For sure. And I'm just saying that, but I agree with Drew, because ultimately at the end of the day, look, if this team, as we saw when Josh Morrissey got injured against, was it Montreal? And he didn't have him for the bubble series. You can't sustain a loss of like a guy like Morris. You can't sustain really a loss, even if Dylan Samberg. We saw what it's done to the PK. But maybe you can augment that if you have a third pairing guy who can actually take that step up. It's not Logan Stanley. It's certainly not Hayden Fleury, with all due respect. And I think that's also in part because Neil Pionk isn't sufficiently strong. Again, my answer would, to be honest with you, my answer on the left side would probably change if Dylan DeMello was paired alongside one of those guys. So if you strengthen the top pairing right side guy with Morrissey, and then you had DeMello as your second pairing guy with whomever, Dylan Samberg, or if he's not there, whatever, then maybe Dylan DeMello can calm down and bring up the game of someone else. But I'm just saying that if we're spitballing, I do think that you want a third pairing guy on the left side who can make that jump if needed. Or maybe you swing for the fences and you look around and Kevin Cheveldayoff. I mean, look, guys, we don't know what the salary cap is going to do for this Winnipeg Jets team. They've got obviously some question marks coming, down the line, but we're trying to just focus on this year. And to me, this is of all years is a great year for the Winnipeg Jets to go all in.
The Jets we'll find out about the Jets' course of action over the next month. We are less than 1 month away from the NHL trade deadline. For those asking, there is not a roster freeze during the Four Nations Cup. I wouldn't expect a lot of movement or trades because logically it doesn't really make a lot of sense to disrupt someone's life right now, especially while they're on vacation. But there is, in fact, not a roster freeze. So it is possible that a move could be made by your favorite team in the next couple of weeks while the NHL games get paused. Yes,
you get a phone call from you're in Cabo, Ezzy. Yeah, you're no longer going back to insert U.S. city here. You're coming to Winnipeg for the rest of February.
Enjoy the warm weather.
Yeah, it's pretty mild out today.
Yeah, it's a nice
minus
day.
20.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's nice. It makes you feel good to be alive. Kevin Woodley to talk about goaltending up next this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey.
It's milder in Vancouver, Drew.
It's presented by Play Now. Don't go anywhere.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, bottom of hour number 2. Kevin Woodley set to join us momentarily here on the program. We'll bring him in just as soon as we can. A programming note, couple programming notes for everybody, though. No show next Saturday. We usually take one Saturday off right around the Christmas season. We didn't do that this year. So we're going to take next Saturday off, barring something unforeseen. Of course, if something significant occurs, we will be there as we always are. But assuming that it's all as quiet, more or less, we will not be on air next Saturday with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're going to take the day off. We're going to take the week off. But we return 2 weeks from today, the 22nd of February, 9 a.m., the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And then later that night, Boston Pizza 6 p.m., the
Boom.
Jets are going to be in action against the St. Louis Blues. We will be there for the watch party, for the live on location post-game show. So again, no show next Saturday. 2 weeks from now, we're back Saturday morning, and then at Boston Pizza that night, where I expect that everybody in attendance will be purchasing for Dave pierogi pizza. Hold the bacon. Important on hold the bacon part, but Dave is definitely going to be forced, even if it's being forced fed, he's going to try a pierogi and some lasagna if my life depends on it. Not going to happen, Dave?
You know what the best part of that having next Saturday off is? It coincides with Festival de Voyageur, and I will be going to Festival de Voyageur this year with Spency. We already have a date to
Call
go.
him by his new name.
Sorry. Technical difficulties.
Thank you. Technical difficulties. So for the people in the chat or the people listening on the podcast who've been wondering where Spency has been, Spency has decided to change his username to Technical Difficulties to commemorate last week's technical difficulties.
And this week's.
Well, this week's were very brief, though. This week's were more in keeping with us just being late to start the show. Not
us.
Well, okay, fair enough. Not, Ezzy. I was here, you were here, Ezzy. But that's par for the course is all that was, as far as I'm concerned. So there you go. There's the update for the upcoming program.
Yeah, I'm going to see Spency in his avatar there. I'm going to be on the guy on the left there with him at Festival.
Yeah, we all have life goals and squad goals, and you guys are certainly a squad, the two of you. May God have mercy on all of us in that instance. Kevin Woodley, like I said, set to join us. The Jets, they're off for the next couple of weeks, so it'll be something like that. Connor Hellebuck, he won't be off. He'll be in action with Team USA and the Four Nations Cup, and we know how good Hellebuck has been. Logan Thompson, though, it's amazing, that he's not on Team Canada. I mean, not that I'm spending a lot of time paying significant attention to this tournament. I'll watch it if I'm home and things of that nature. But it was really nice of Team Canada to not take their best players. I thought that was really nice of Team Canada, for all the other nations, for the US, for Sweden, for Finland, to not bring their best team with them.
What about Darcy Kemper? I mean, there's two goalies that should be on Team Canada. Darcy Kemper is arguably in the Vezina conversation. If I had a vote, I might have him as a finalist. I mean, it would be hard not to have Logan Thompson as a finalist, and I'm emphasizing the word finalist because Hellebuck's already won the Vezina Trophy. I don't care what anybody says, but yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And look, you mentioned earlier, Darren Drager had the tweet that Mark Scheifele is obviously, we're on Scheifele watch, as Kenny said, in addition to being Doughty watch, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely some. What about Zach Hyman, guys? Last time I checked, Zach Hyman's having a pretty good year for the Edmonton Oilers. So, I mean, look, and a best-on-best tournament when you're a country like Canada or the other countries for that matter, there's always going to be good players that are left off. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at the goaltending and get excited for Sam Montembeault and Jordan Binnington. That's for sure.
It's just bizarre to me. I mean, it's like they forgot everything that they learned after Nagano. And I know Nagano has been a lot of years ago when they didn't take the best team, the best players possible to Japan for the first ever Olympics tournament. It's like, you know what?
Did we watch the gold medal game together at wasn't that like 2 a.m. or something? Was that Nagano?
No, we never watched the gold medal game because Canada wasn't in it.
No. But what tournament was it? Which one was it? Don't you remember?
That's hilarious.
No, what was it? Well, we still could have watched the gold medal game.
No, 2002 Salt Lake City. We watched it at Richie's house.
No, but that wasn't the one we watched. What was the one we remember? We stayed up till like 3 a.m.
It could have been the semifinals against.
I think it was the semifinals. That's what it was.
And then I remember what happened there. But again, I'm dismayed by the decisions that the Team Canada brass made with regard to some of the players.
Oh, boo-hoo! This hockey tournament, which is that I don't know that many people are going to be watching, and don't know that many people are going to be attending. Will other than if you have a horse in the race, I really don't. I mean, honestly, would I watch it? Sure, if I have time. But I'm not going to be. I mean, I'm probably lying. I probably will watch it, but I don't know. I just think it's hard to call it a best on best when the best aren't there. Leon Draisaitl, the guy who has 41 goals in the NHL, he's not there. David Pasternak, he has Mark Scheifele has the third most goals since December 4th when Team Canada was announced, right? He's not obviously there. Zach Hyman, I think he's 5th or 6th on the list But guys like Draisaitl, Pasternak, guys who are tearing up the NHL, they're not at this tournament. So how am I supposed to get excited for the best on best when it's 4 teams? It's just hard to really get juiced. I'm sorry, like it just doesn't do it for me without all the teams there.
I like that Dave's channeling me with a little bit of a rant there. I appreciate Dave getting fired up.
Well, I think, guys, you hope that, as the tournament begins and, there's going to be some narratives and storylines that develop. And look, at the end of the day, regardless of your excitement level, and I get it, Dave, because we're all really excited for the 2026 Winter Olympics. Let's be honest.
Sure.
That's what people are really excited for. I don't think you're going to find many hockey fans that are saying, we're more excited for a 4-nation tournament as opposed to seeing countries competing for a gold medal. So that's the big one. But I think just to see Crosby, McDavid, and McKinnon on the same ice with, Cale Makar and Josh Morrissey.
Yeah,
and if you're for Jets fans, just watching Morrissey, Kyle Connor, and Connor Hellebuck, Dave, is a reason to watch the 4 nations. But regardless, I mean, hopefully we'll just see some good hockey, right?
What I'm always intrigued about it, when you get all these best players, the best Canadians, best Americans, best Finns, best Swedes all together, and they get to spend time with each other because they don't often get to spend time sort of, in one room. I'm curious to learn what Josh Morrissey learns from some of those defensemen that he's going to be playing with when he can pick their brain. If Scheifele goes, what does Scheifele learn from being next to McKinnon and McDavid, for a week or 10 days or things of that nature, or Crosby? That's where I sort of, my intriguing aspect of it is, what do you learn spending that time with them, and what do you take from that tournament and bring back to your dressing room that can help improve your NHL club moving forward? Well, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just was going to say, that's kind of what Scott Arniel talked about. And that's the appeal of a tournament like this. And so again, like Connor Hellebuck, I don't think he's got anything to learn, to be honest with you. But Mark Scheifele going, if he goes and picks brains of guys and learns some things, Josh Morrissey, Kyle Connor, there's definitely elements of benefit, I think. Obviously, there's risk as well because teams can, that's why Washington, I'm sure, is not upset to have 0 guys going because they'll have everyone getting rested and just focused on winning the championship. It's what their focus there is in Washington. And again, there's no question, like I said, and ultimately, guys, Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, the reason why they want to be there is because, as Ezzy just said, when the Olympics come down and it really means something to win a gold for your country, every one of those guys wants to be given a chance to win a gold medal for Canada or the US or whichever team it is.
Yeah, there's no question about it. But that's sort of where I'm intrigued by, I'm intrigued by how the Winnipeg Jets, the players who go to the tournament and the ones who come back, how do they take sort of the final 26 games at hand? How they, how they approach these final 26 games, because they are sort of in a unique spot, being so far ahead of their closest competition. That's not something that we typically see at this point in the season, where you're 11 points up on your closest division rival, the Dallas Stars.
That's actually insane.
I know. I mean, you're 22 points up on falling out of a playoff spot, which is, I mean, these are country miles ahead of your opponents.
And remember, Dallas, I know they lost, and I think they lost. They lost in a shootout to the Kings yesterday. Yes. But Dallas had won. Like, they were matching the Jets win for win. So even though Dallas was on like a 5-game win streak, they're not gaining any ground because the Jets were on a 6-game win streak. So it is pretty remarkable to see, to be honest with you, what this team has been able to do.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, I think we have Kevin Woodley set to join us now this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'll bring him in. Kevin, good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Sorry about that, guys. A little issue with getting connected this morning.
All good. We know all about technical issues, Kevin, so you're in good company in that case. Kevin, obviously we brought you on. You're a goaltending expert, goaltending insight. Kevin is InGoal on Twitter, and I'm not sure if you do the other social media platforms, but I'll let you plug yourself after. We got to start with Connor Hellebuck here in Winnipeg. We know that he's the runaway leader for the Vezina Trophy and everything else that's good about goaltending. From your expert eye, what are you seeing, if anything, that's different about Connor Hellebuck this year as compared to his other previous years where he's been a dominant force in that for the Jets?
It's a good question. To be honest, I've read some of the reporting on, sort of more the mindset shift and how he's approaching things that way. I'm not sure that I see a huge difference technically. Maybe a little more conservative from a depth perspective. I've had a number of people sort of bring that up. A trend we're seeing around the league amongst some of the top guys. We continue to hear how dynamic the game is, how fast it is east-west, how much it's become lateral. And so it makes sense that goalies are going to have to start paying more attention to where they are positioned in their crease relative to that. The further out you play, not just north-south, but east-west outside of your posts, the more you're going to have to move to cover off all that distance from those lateral plays that we see so much of. So I haven't deep dived sort of his, got out the measuring sticks virtually, so to speak, to see how much of a difference there is there. But I've had a couple of people tell me that they think he's playing a little more conservatively. It's been a hell of especially the first half, unreal how well he's played. So a little bit of a dip here to start 2025, statistically at least. And, as far as runaway, it's as incredible as he's been, and as much as it looked like that would be the case halfway through the season, as much as I still think he wins it, what Logan Thompson is doing is not just Vezina worthy. Statistically, it's at the level of what Igor Shesterkin did the year everybody was touting him for Hart. And whether he'll get enough games, some voters will say, look at the workhorse that Hellebuck is and other guys are in terms of how many more games they played versus Thompson in the first half of the season in a job share. That remains to be seen. But Linus Hallmark won a Vezina playing less than a number one, workhorse starter role. And, Thompson's numbers aren't just hey, this is the best this season. If he keeps it up, these are hey, this is the best we've seen in 5 years. So yeah, those would be the top of the list. GMs are probably still voting for Hellebuck at this point, but there's a race there.
Absolutely. And I think you got to throw in Darcy Kemper as well, right? I think a lot of people are basically saying there isn't a Vezina trophy race this year. And I get that, Kevin. And you just mentioned Logan Thompson, obviously, and you've got the framed Carey Price and Roberto Luongo. I forget, you've got another one there in the middle too, right? Okay. Yeah. You got Hank there. So can't forget about Henrik Lundqvist, but obviously we got to switch our attention to the Four Nations tournament. Hellebuck is obviously going to be the top goaltender for the U.S. Nobody is really discussing that, right? But I'm not going to ask you about the goaltenders that were left off because I think everybody agrees that Logan Thompson deserves to be there. But what's your kind of overall assessment going into the tournament of Canada's goaltending? Do you have a favorite to start? Is Aiden Hill the top guy for you, or just what's your kind of overall assessment of who Canada chose to be the goalies and where those goalies are at right now in the season?
Well, it's interesting because there was a lot of sort of consternation over the state of Canadian goaltending, and honestly, we could do a whole show on how we've fallen behind the Americans in terms of the development model and the access to coaching that they provide compared to us, let alone the Scandinavian countries. In particular, Sweden and Finland, and all those things still hold true. But the irony right now as we get ready for the break is there are actually 3 Canadians in the top 10 of NHL adjusted save percentage right now. It's just that none of them are on the team. It's Logan Thompson, Darcy Kemper, who you mentioned, and Mackenzie Blackwood. So I fully Jordan Binnington was a no-brainer to me. This has been a down year statistically. The previous 5 combined, he was top 10 in the league in adjusted save percentage. He's done it behind a team that hasn't defended very well. And that's where you could maybe ask about the fit, because the Blues haven't been good defensively for a long time. And obviously you're expecting Canada to be. I think it'll be Aiden Hill. That's just a hunch based on recent form. The downside, if you're a fan of Canadian goaltending, is that none of the 3 have been above expected since the calendar flipped to January. But interestingly enough, when I look at adjusted save percentage, so get us some smaller samples in there, there's not a single goalie in the Four Nations tournament that's in the top 10 right now. Hellebuck's at 11th. So not the only country that would probably like to do some second guessing and switch some things around. It's just going to be a matter of who can get comfortable behind a different system and different players instantly and get on a roll. I think Hill will get the first shot at it, but I'm not sure. They named the St. Louis Blues goaltending coach David Alexander, who is excellent at what he does. The goalie coach for the Four Nations. I don't know if that'll make any difference at all, but so it could be Binnington. But my hunch right now is Hill based on recent form. In December, for a good 6 weeks, sort of through December, maybe into early January, Aiden Hill looked like playoff Stanley Cup champion, that type of performance. If you do it for a year, it's worth a Vezina trophy. Like, he posted great numbers that run, and he looked like that guy. It just he hasn't been able to hold on to it. So, and the other part too here, like how the team plays and what they take away factors into this. Every goalie has relative strengths and weaknesses. And so in Hill's case in particular, that's one of the things Vegas did. They gave up a lot of high danger in that playoff run, but they were the high danger that he was the best at stopping. And they didn't give up any of the high danger that he wasn't. And I would think that the pre-scouts will be pretty in-depth. And so if you can get to the middle of the ice between the hash marks and the top of the circles, there's some exposure there. There is on any goalie, but there is in particular on Aiden Hill. And so if you're Canada, are you building your system to take away the things that plague him and to give teams the ones that he's really good at stopping? There's horses for courses here. And I'm really curious to see, I'm assuming the teams are paying attention to that as they build these things out. But I've made assumptions about teams paying attention to the details of goaltending before, only to find out later on, we just went with the best guy.
Kevin, what is adjusted save percentage? Because you mentioned that, and I know a lot of people in our chat, and I'm sure people who are listening are saying, what is adjusted save percentage? That's not a stat we're familiar with. So maybe a quick synopsis of that, because I think a lot of people heard you say Connor Hellebuyck is 11th, and then their heads exploded for a little bit.
Okay, so adjusted save percentage is basically what I look at as more of a per shot basis rather than goals saved above expected. So if everybody understands what goals saved above expected is there, how many goals you allow relative to, based on shot quality and volume, what the average goalie would allow in the NHL, like how much more or less you stop compared to the average. In save percentage, we're just basically creating an expected save percentage based on the quality of shots faced. And this is clear sight analytics. So this isn't public data. This is private and a lot more in depth than what you'll see elsewhere, especially on the public sites. When it comes to goaltending and shot quality, actually for players too, I would say it's actually a lot more in depth than any of the other private data. And so you create an expected for each type of shot using, I think it's 34 different factors. And from that, you basically have different expected save percentages for different goalies, and it's how they're performing relative to it. And so when I say that, that's not Connor Hellebuyck hasn't been great thing. That's his environment plays a role in what you're seeing in the raw numbers. Like, he has had they've been really good defensively in terms of not giving up the highest danger stuff. And his expected save percentage is a little higher than those other guys. So that's where you see the discrepancy. He's still outperforming it by a significant margin. It's not his fault that Logan Thompson is playing behind a Washington Capitals team that doesn't give up a ton of volume, but is giving up a ton of quality. There's almost, last I checked, and nothing like looking at things while you're on the radio, but last I want to say, I was going to say 20 points, but that feels so extreme. There is got to scroll down here. Yeah, there's a 16-point difference in expected environment between Logan Thompson and Connor Hellebuyck. The Jets are defending at above league average level, and Washington very much is not. So again, it's not a negative in any way, shape, or form. It's just a relative to environment, how the goalie is performing. And like I said, what Logan Thompson is doing right now is not just a really good year. It's historic.
So it's almost like Logan Thompson is playing in front of what the Winnipeg Jets defense used to be, which is sieve-like, and then have to rely on their goaltender to bail them out. I know that's sort of simplistic, but if I'm hearing you correctly, the Jets' defensive structure and their success in keeping teams away from the high danger areas is a contributing factor to Connor Hellebuyck maybe being a little bit lower down in the number you were just citing. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Like teams, but you have an opportunity. It's harder to do, especially this long into a season. You have an opportunity to post bigger numbers in same with goals saved above expected. Like if you're playing behind a poorer team and stopping more bullets in your teeth, you have an opportunity to build out big numbers. If the expected is higher, if the environment is more goalie friendly, you're not going to lead. It's going to be harder to lead the charts in goals saved above expected there. Like an easier defensive environment for a goaltender makes it hard to, ironically, climb up a lot of the list of a lot of these charts. And that, that's just, and I would say, you say high danger areas. It's so much more than that. Like so much more than that. It's screens. You hit the top corner of the net with a layered screen, it goes in more than a breakaway. That's the reality of today's NHL, and almost nobody's measuring that. So, these things matter in terms of weighting performance, how much of it is team, how much of it is goaltender, and it takes nothing away from what the goaltenders are doing in Winnipeg. Like Connor Hellebuyck is the slam dunk winner of the Vezina Trophy at the halfway point of the season. Like I said, these things have dipped a little bit in January. I don't know anecdotally if you see that, but statistically it's dipped a little bit in January. And guys like Logan Thompson are just having historically great seasons. I still think Connor wins it. He's still full value for it. You guys see what he means to the team in terms of the confidence to play the way they're playing and how much they feed off him. And to know, like, there's a lot of intangibles that go into that, to creating that environment, and the goaltender's a part of it, and he deserves credit for it. It's just not going to come out in the math as much as another goaltender who, like I said, is being asked to make Superman saves more regularly.
Yeah, and we see that, Kevin. We saw the Jets suppressed. They didn't allow more than 30 shots in 16 straight games until the Islanders decided to shoot 19 in the third period last night to prevent them from having 17 straight. I want to ask you about the other Jets goaltender, because I know you and Eric Comrie have a good relationship. I've listened to you guys have those long, extensive chats for InGoal magazine, but I'm just curious what you're seeing from him. It looks like he's back to the Eric Comrie we saw when he had his first full season here in Winnipeg, and we just know how important he is from an off-ice perspective with Connor Hellebuyck, the relationship they have, obviously same agent, same trainers. And what are you seeing from Eric Comrie this year? And we know that he wasn't getting the run support for a lot of his games during that stretch of whatever it was, 7 in a row where he wasn't getting the wins, but he had a hell of a good game against a very good Carolina team. So from your perspective, what are you seeing from Eric this season?
Well, a goaltender that's comfortable in his environment. I think he's made some subtle changes in his game. Feels good about his game. Feels good about his game in part because Wade Flaherty's really good at getting him there, helping him get there, helping him stay there even when he's not playing enough. And he uses, his work with Connor Hellebuyck to do that, like in terms of their video reviews, and they'll both be in there at the same times. Like it really is a fantastic relationship. I think one that benefits everyone. Like I think Helly probably benefits from it too. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who I was glad that the Jets gave him a shot, because you talk about expected save percentage and adjusted save percentage. Like this is going to be hard for people to believe, but Eric was right around league average, slightly above it last year. Mm-hmm. You couldn't tell. Like everybody clearing waivers and everybody screaming that he's not an NHL goalie, because his expected save percentage, if I remember off the top of my head, was in the 850s. Mm-hmm. Like Buffalo just fed him to the wolves. It's like, hey, we got these young goaltenders. Every time we got to start where we think it's going to go ugly, let's throw him in. That's what it felt like. I'm not saying that's what's the mentality, but I've never seen an expected save percentage as low as what Eric's was last year over the course of a season in the NHL. It bordered on absurd. And, he didn't really have a chance. Nobody would when it's that bad. And so, I'm glad he's getting a chance to show that he's still a good NHL goalie on a team that does a little better in terms of supporting their goaltenders. And he's outperforming his environment. There's a lot of noise in the year, about say, Jonathan Quick and the season he was having. Well, Eric's ahead of him on that list. Sam Montembeault for Canada, Eric's ahead of him on that list, right? Like the guy he played behind in Buffalo last year, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, like Eric's got a better expected or adjusted save percentage than him. So it's such a good fit in terms of getting the best out of him. And, recognizing that that's not an easy job when you only play once every couple of weeks because you're behind, arguably the best goaltender in the world. Not everybody can do that. And so I think the Jets have done a really nice job of finding guys that are capable of that not just Eric, but other guys before him. And then, building relationships that allow them to have success in those roles, and the importance of that relationship with Connor and with Wade Flaherty and the way they all work together. Like, it's just a really good fit. It made a lot of sense to me. I was kind of hoping, and absolutely, admittedly biased, 100%, right? Like, love the kid. One of my favorite people in goaltending. And so I was kind of hoping this might happen, honestly. Maybe even whispered in someone's ear in Winnipeg as last year was winding down, and knowing they were going to lose Brossoit, that if you need a cheap option because Helly's contract's kicking in, I can think of a good fit.
Kevin, one last one for you. Igor Shesterkin is always sort of, the holy trinity of goalies in the NHL for the last 5 years has been Vasilevsky, Hellebuyck, and Shesterkin. Shesterkin, he's now injured. He's out for the next couple of weeks. A very down year for him, down year, disappointing year for the New York Rangers in general. What are you seeing when you see Igor Shesterkin, and is it a long-term decline, beginning to see the back end of the slope, or is this just a function of sort of a confluence of negative events?
I would say a confluence of negative events, starting with the fact the Rangers don't piss a drop on defense. Like, honestly, guys, if we're talking about the demise of Igor Shesterkin, then more people need to have access to these statistics, because he's second in the league behind Logan Thompson in goals saved above expected right now. His environment at times is horrific. Overall, it's a full 10 points below league average. Amongst the goalies in the top 10 in adjusted save percentage, his is the lowest. So I think what you're seeing here, and I've heard a lot of these conversations around UC Saros. Like, UC Saros was frustrating to me for the first half of the season because people kept asking me what was wrong with him. And it's dipped. Admittedly, it's dipped sort of from around mid-December. But for the first good chunk of the first half, he's one of the best goalies in the league, and nobody could tell. Right? Like, and so I'd equate this to the Eric Comrie discussion. Nobody watches these games enough to be able to tell what goalies are facing. Like, you just can't. You could watch every game and still not be able to process it in your head. You really need to have access to numbers that sort of give you how different the apples and oranges environments are. And so Igor Shesterkin's expected save percentage is 26 points below Connor Hellebuyck's. So add 26 points to Igor Shesterkin's raw numbers, and what do you have? Like, that's just the reality of what he's playing behind. They're terrible defensively on a lot of nights. It's the reason they've taken a major step back, despite all the talent they have. And I don't think it's an Igor Shesterkin problem. As a matter of fact, I'd rank him still as one of the top 5 goalies in the league, and I have the numbers this year to back it up. Ilya Sorokin with the Islanders, too, is making an incredible push here and rising up these charts as well. So, when we talk about top 10 lists, there's a bunch of Russians in there. And then if it was the 5 nations or 6 nations, or we had a few more nations in there, they'd have a tough choice to make. And guys like Shesterkin are a massive part of that. Again, like, even Vasilevsky's having a nice bounce back season. A lot of that is team environment. Like, he's playing well, but he's also got a more supportive environment. The numbers, aren't nearly as they're still flattering, but not nearly as flattering as what you're seeing on the raw list. Just like the numbers for Igor Shesterkin are not nearly as troubling as what you'll see when you look the numbers up at NHL.com.
So what Kevin is saying, Drew, is that Igor Shesterkin is worth $92 million. That's what he's saying.
Every goalie's worth $92 million. I should be getting paid $92 million.
The guys from InGoal magazine, they're worth $92 million. The guys,
absolutely.
Trust me, here in Vancouver, we got a lot of $92 million questions around players. They're not goalies.
Yeah. One fewer, though, up front, though, with JT Miller. Just quickly, though, Kevin, because we're way over time and the show should have ended a minute ago. Just... you've covered this league for a lot of years. Have you ever been around anything as wild as what happened in Vancouver this year with Miller and Pettersson just, being at such loggerheads with one another?
Can I interest you in a Blake Wheeler saga in Winnipeg?
we lived through that, but it never got as public as it did in Vancouver.
Please, Kevin, I don't want to go back to that.
maybe that's the difference, right? Maybe the difference is just how much this got out. And it's interesting because there's a lot of talk about the noise, and a lot of the times we in the media got blamed. And I was like, like, every time it quieted, the GM does an interview that added gasoline to it. And then Jim Rutherford took a blowtorch to it in the Globe and Mail. So like the fires that burned and created the noise were not necessarily from us, or at least locally. A lot of it happens nationally, and then we have to react and ask questions. The first time it was sort of spoken into existence, even though we all knew it happened, was a question to Quinn Hughes, the captain, followed up with one to talk it. So, at 25 years this month, my anniversary, McSorley, Wacker, and Brashear was my first game for the Associated Press. And I can safely say no. And the negative cloud, the darkness, the sort of misery that it felt like walking into that locker room. I'm not saying it was like that when we weren't there, but that's what it was like when we walked in as media. Maybe it's the new guys and the excitement they've brought. It seems to have been lifted. There's a performance bump on the ice, even with Quinn Hughes injured of late. I think they've won 5 of 7 or 5-1-1 in their last 7. So it seems absurd to suggest addition by subtraction, given how good JT Miller can be as a player. But it feels like the mess that was that locker room dynamic getting cleaned up will indeed lead to that, even if it hasn't fixed whatever is wrong with the guy who wears 40.
Kevin Woodley covers the Vancouver Canucks for NHL.com, but he does his best work, no offense, with InGoal magazine, talking about goaltenders and breaking things down in a manner in which you don't see on a day-to-day basis. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your insight. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Sorry I was late. I have a tough time sorting emails.
All good. Take care, Kevin. Thanks so much. Thanks, Woodley, our guest this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'll be honest, guys. Have I taken 2 breaks or have I taken 3 breaks? I only took 2. That's what I thought.
Because you didn't do a break before Kenny, so
right,
we've only
exactly
done 2.
Right. We'll take a late commercial break. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up. We'll remind everybody what's going on over the next couple of weeks. We're into overtime, so don't go anywhere. It's a Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
All righty, we're into overtime this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk Ezra Ginsburg, a great show. Kevin Woodley, Ken Weeb, all bringing some great insight and analysis into the program. Just a quick reminder, again, next Saturday, no show. We're going to take the Saturday off, but we return 2 weeks from today, 9 a.m., the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're going to get you set for the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. And then later that night, the Illegal Curve post-game show, the Illegal Curve watch party, 6 o'clock. We're going to be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. The Jets and the Blues will be there. All of you will be there. It'll be a great time. So be sure to mark that down to your calendar. Joe from Winnipeg, stop pointing out my foibles when I misspeak. It's very rude of you to do that because I misspeak more often than I speak accurately. But nonetheless, it's been a lot of fun over the last 21 or so hours doing 3 programs starting at 12 noon yesterday at City Place, the post-game show last night, and then, of course, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show this morning. One final thought from each of you, a brief one, before we wrap it up and head our merry ways for the next couple of weeks.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We got a big Moose game this afternoon, Drew.
We got 6 straight Moose games. Now, I don't know that I can give you any insight because, of course, Moose were on the AHL All-Star break. Elias Salamonson, though, did win with the Central Division. He had 2 goals in the 4 games I think they played, or 3 games they played, including the game-tying goal in the championship. I know before they went to a shootout. I don't know if he didn't get a shot because it was only 3 shooters. But we'll see what happens. Moose, as he'll be there as our IC correspondent.
I'll have a full breakdown of Parker Ford and Brad Lambert's game.
Yeah, they're back down with the Moose as we expected. And like I said, we've got tickets. We gave away the tickets for this afternoon. I've got more tickets for Sunday. People who are listening to the show emailing me and asking if they can go. So we've got tickets for Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, and then, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. So there's lots of Moose games coming up. We'll have tickets to give away to all of them. And this is my final thought, though, just so you know. I want to give a shout out to the city of Winnipeg, because despite some stupid question in the Athletic, which I rail against because I think it's the dumbest thing that they ask every time.
The player poll. Yes, we get it. People don't want to be traded to Winnipeg. Stop asking the question.
It's actually, first of all, I mean, no offense. Then go, you know what half these players who are responding should do? Go play in the AHL, because that's where you should be if they actually played the NHL at an elite level. But they have got a lot of guys who should be in the AHL who are playing in the NHL and making millionaire salaries. So stop crying about where you're playing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, those, it's the classic, if you know, you know. And the reality is people who play here and are developed here, and I'm not going to go through the list because we don't need to prove it. I just think we need to get out of the business of trying to prove that Winnipeg is good. We get so wrapped up in this, oh my God, people are maligning Winnipeg. We have to prove it's good. We don't have to prove shit. No, it's cold. It's warm. It's great. There's mosquitoes sometimes. There's not mosquitoes other times. This is a great city to live in. It's a great province to live in. We don't have to apologize for it. We don't have to try and defend it every time one of these stupid, I see this stuff come out and then immediately people feel this need to defend. And it's
funny, Dave. Sorry for interrupting. And this is a good rant. It's funny because I actually thought when this article came out that we got less of the people getting their back up about it. Because
I agree.
People said, we know. We don't care what you have to say about it. All of your insight into Winnipeg, random anonymous NHL player, is not factually correct. So You're absolutely right that the Athletic and anybody else who writes these player poll survey articles should stop with the generic, obvious questions. It's low-hanging fruit. You should try. And I say this to the editors at The Athletic.
That's right.
You should try to be better than the absolute bottom level that you are when you ask questions like that.
I'm not saying that because we're in Winnipeg and it's the city that's getting dumped on. At the same time, if it was Buffalo, I'd say the same thing. If it was Edmonton, for the record, Edmonton used to be on that list until they got a guy named Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But the fact of the matter is, again, we just have to stop trying to just give a shitting about, or giving a shit, about this type of stuff, because it's just, you see it, and I kind of get a little bit incensed, because I'm a Manitoban, and again, it's also so stupid, right? It's like, oh, the food's not very good. It's like, well, maybe move past Earl's And don't get me wrong, I like Earl's. I used to go to Earl's all the time.
You
But
still have your name up on a plaque at Earl's.
Yeah, that's true. Shout out Earl's, Maine. But the fact of the matter is that this food scene in the city, including the pierogies, is first rate. You just have to get out of your bubble. And again, taking criticism from guys who are in their 20s and have the vast life experience, you don't really need. So like I said, I just think it irritates me. It pisses me off as a Manitoban. But I just think we just need to forget about it and not try and defend it.
Let's be honest, guys. Have any of these players gone for a nice walk on a summer day in Transcona and had a little pierogi and honey dill sauce?
From the Whistle Pig, which is no longer there.
Are you eating your pierogies with honey dill sauce?
No, I just threw in honey dill sauce in there. French fries.
He tried to be extra Manitoban there, Drew.
Okay, I was gonna say you can't be eating pierogies with honey dill sauce.
No, I mentioned it earlier. It's sour cream all day long.
By the way, would everyone kill me if I told you I've never had honey dill sauce?
That's it. Good night, folks. That is the end of this morning's edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to all of you for joining us over the last 24 hours. We appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast, put your notifications on so that when we go live again 2 weeks from today, you'll be sure not to miss an episode of anything broadcast by Illegal Curve Hockey. IllegalCurve.com, of course, will be updated over the course of the next 2 weeks. So that's your number one resource for everything to do with the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and hockey here in Winnipeg. Big thank you to the sponsors of our programming who make these shows possible. That's our friends at Play Now, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and of course at Seagram's. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Barring something unforeseen, we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time, Saturday, February the 22nd, for the next edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg,
Go Chiefs.
Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.